Do you want to bring balance to all the wireless radiation fields in your life, including 5G? The OMNIA Radiation Balancer is a small sticker you can stick on any device. It changes the state of the field and creates a new resonance between the wireless radiation and your energy field. And here's a special offer for the Journey to Truth crowd. Just enter the word truth in caps at the checkout for your 10% discount. It's easy to bring balance back to your body with the OMNIA Radiation Balancer.
Hey guys, welcome back. A few things before we get started tonight. Announcement, we have a new promo code for our Hopewell Farm CBD. It's actually a Black Friday sale that's going to go all the way through December 12th. And that promo code is Let's Go Brandon 15. That gets you 15% off all Hopewell Farm CBD products. It's really amazing stuff, guys. Seriously, it's the best CBD I've tried. I thought I'd try some local stuff because it was on sale, and I grabbed it and I tried it, and it was like it didn't even compare to this because I'm so used to this stuff. So it's amazing. I highly recommend it. They have discounts for veterans, free shipping for any purchases over $200 or more. You can buy with crypto, which is awesome. I don't know how many CBD companies are actually accepting crypto payments, but that's really cool. So Let's Go Brandon 15 gets you 15% off from now through December 12th. And don't forget to grab a ticket to our Secret Space Conference coming up next May 2nd through the 5th. We're super excited about that. Live stream tickets are available for those of you who can't make it for $111 or $444 if you want to come in person. That's 4 days, 12 speakers, includes a meal plan. It's going to be a lot of fun, so we're really looking forward to that. Grab a ticket. That information is below secretspaceconference.info. And I was getting ready to introduce Brad, but it looks like he just disappeared off the screen.
Turned into Pepe.
You there, Brad?
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I had to let my plug in. Unless he was going to be scratching on the door the whole show.
No, also, don't forget about our Teespring merch is 15% off all that with promo code CGI Joe. And we might actually be changing that to 20% soon. So just keep your ears open for that. Anyway, welcome to the show. Tonight we're joined by Brad GetZ. And he, I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he's been pretty popular, I guess, in the 17 Anon world. And he's been doing a lot of great stuff. But thanks to IET, if you guys know who he is, he shared Brad's Looking Glass video. And I found it on Telegram and I watched it and I was just totally blown away. I was like, this is great.
It's
finally
really
somebody.
good.
Finally, somebody compiled everything in a digestible format. I mean, there's a lot of videos on Looking Glass out there, right? So you can get information from all over the place. There's whistleblowers, but it was a great video and you're clearly well-researched on the topic. So I'm excited to get into it and talk about it. We've covered it in the past, but we're going to get deep, just dive straight in. So welcome to the show, Brad.
Oh, thanks, man. Glad to be here. And yeah, it's a super interesting topic. And you know, I feel like obviously it's one of those things that's a little more fun too. You know, it's not very definite. You can look into different things that people have said about it and kind of put it together. And that's what I tried when I was trying to make sense of it. I actually was trying to go to kind of debunk it in a way. And the more I found and the more I was talking about it and all this stuff, I don't know, it makes a lot of sense. Like I feel like there's actually something to it. And I remember thinking like, man, is time travel possible? I kind of came away from that dig thinking there might be something to that. And what I was thinking too is this is time is the fourth dimension, right? We could traverse all the other three dimensions pretty much back and forth. maybe we can traverse time back and forth, depending, I mean, you could at least go into the future, right? With time dilation, that they've kind of proven that uh, on a very, very small scale with they've taken really set timepieces above onto the space stations, which are traveling at high speeds, and they've come back a little bit ahead of time. So it's in a weird way. I think it's saying that they feel like they've proven that, and that comes from Einstein's theory of special relativity. But the thought of going in the past, I don't know. Some of these things, man, some of the Baron Trump books or just different stuff you come into, it looks like to me, it could at least be possible. And that's really fun to me. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's break it down. Like so where does this information come from? As far as I know, the first time we heard of the term Looking Glass, Project Looking Glass, was from Bob Lazar in 1989, but he didn't have firsthand information. He was relaying a briefing that he read about it. So he didn't actually see it, but I forgot what show he was on where he talked about that then. But then we've had whistleblowers come out of the woodwork now.
Many whistleblowers come out talking about it.
Bill Wood in particular, but it's allegedly a reverse engineered a seat from like an ET craft or something like that. What did you come up with in your research, Brad?
Yeah, so I think one of the most in-depth things about it was from Dan Burish, and it's a really compelling interview that was on the Project Camelot channel. And what he was saying is reverse engineered from the Sumerian cylinder seals, and basically what he was saying is he uses like a future probabilities machine, but also he was saying if you use them together, if you use two of them at the same time, you could kind of use it to like see in the past or possibly go to the past. And I don't know, I thought that was incredibly interesting. And there's been other things like that too over the years that, there's that with the Looking Glass. There was the project from the Vatican, right?
Chronovisor,
yeah, where they claimed that they were able to tune it to a certain frequency and kind of observe past things. And I don't know, there's also what he mentions, Bursch actually mentions something called a yellow cube as well. And it seems like these two mimic each other. Like the Looking Glass was kind of like our version trying to mimic that as well. And if there's more and more things like this, it just tells me that it's at least possible. And the way it works is seems like that for the sound you would need the second one, but you could also look in the first one, and at least with the yellow cube, it was working on your feelings too. So he was saying it kind of read the person that it was with. And that came from the Orions, he said, which he was claiming was us from the future, but also I think came something with the constellation Orion. But he was pretty much saying that it was us from the future who came back, I guess, to talk to past us, which is exactly what you would do if you had this sort of technology. And it's weird. I liked when he was getting into the stuff with the facilities at Area 51. I found that incredibly fascinating because you would have it. This is stuff that they would absolutely have and they would absolutely be able to use. And you just look at different things. Like one of the things that really got me was some of the Baron Trump books. That's at least what allowed me to consider it all. I don't know if you guys have dug into them with the Ingersoll Lockwood.
Yeah. We've talked about it. I've never read the books. Have you read them, Aaron?
I haven't read them, but I've done research on them, and I've seen other people's research and videos on them. And there's a lot of stuff in there it's either like a ton of very, very interesting coincidences, or there's something there. And your video was one of them. You put a lot of those pieces together.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, some of that stuff you just can't. It's almost like.
It's like, come on.
Okay, come on. Yeah, exactly. Like that's your reaction. It's like, come on. Like there's no way.
Yeah.
Dude, the picture drawn in it even looks like Baron Trump.
It looks like
It's like, come on, dude, what are the odds of this?
And just for the people who don't know what we're talking about, when were those books released?
like around 1900 or 1890.
Yeah, I think like the late 1800s.
Late 1800s.
And they basically
1890
predicted what, like the whole Trump era, right?
So what it is Baron Trump. There's three of them. There's two Baron Trump books, and one of them involves time travel, and he has a mentor, a Don. I mean, Don is also a title, but his mentor is Don, who helps him go in time travel. And there's all these interesting passages in it, and even they're in the Library of Congress, so they're confirmed old books. And this author Ingersoll Lockwood, right? He has the two Baron Trump books, but then the third one is called The Last President, and it mirrors, maybe not exactly, but it mirrors Trump's presidency, like a little bit. It starts off with a president from, I believe, Manhattan, who they're protesting in the streets on Fifth Avenue, which Trump Towers and Fifth Avenue, and in this 2016 election, they were protesting in the streets in front of Trump Tower. And it's just certain things, and they're saying, he was they were kind of maligning him and lying about him because he was an outsider, that he wasn't like a politician, and just things like that are super interesting. And then Ingersoll Lockwood, he wasn't a nobody either. He knew Abraham Lincoln. He was a ambassador, and this is some of the stuff that really didn't make the video, but he was an ambassador to someplace in Germany. Germany was broken up at the time. I don't know if it was exactly what it was considered. I forget exactly where, but he was like an ambassador. So this is someone who actually knew Abraham Lincoln, was one of his ambassadors, which, Trump, he's brought up Lincoln from time to time. There's a whole interesting stuff. And really too, I think it's just kind of could be mired with the fact that John Trump, his uncle, who he really admires, was the one tasked with going over Nikola Tesla's works. And Nikola Tesla is rumored to have said, there was an old, I think there was like an old newspaper article where Tesla, he was sitting in a cafe, and one of these reporters had come in, just happened to see him, sat down with him. And according to legend, I had looked for the article, and there's a whole chunk when this article is supposed to be where all of a sudden every Nikola Tesla article was kind of removed. And I thought that was interesting too. And apparently, as urban legend goes, he told this guy that he was fried, like frazzled. And Tesla told him, I just saw all time at once, and that he went through some energy thing that kind of sounded a lot like what Andrew Basiago was describing with the two towers and with the two booms and going through it. And as urban legend goes, that Tesla told him he walked through this thing and he saw the past, future, and present at the same time, and that he was kind of sitting in this cafe a little freaked out about it. So I don't know. It's weird. Did Trump get something? Did John Trump see something and then, told his family and passed it down, and they used it? It's interesting, right?
Well, here's the thing too. Well, it's interesting. You said, I think it was Burish. He claimed that it came from the Sumerian cylinder. It's basically, we've had this technology since Sumerian times. And in the 1950s in Italy is whenever they were coming up, when the chronovisor was apparently developed, and it was eventually handed over to the Vatican, who then handed it over to the CIA. And then we had the Roswell crash, where allegedly this looking glass chair comes from. That's debatable. We don't know exactly where, but the chair comes from Kraft, allegedly, and it's reverse engineered. And it basically, I think it's described like it recreates like the pineal gland in a way. And it, like how we can see things through our pineal gland, it creates a physical version of that you can project onto a screen, basically, or something like that, right?
Yeah, I believe it was they called it the Montauk chair, and they took it out the island, and they were working at it out of Montauk. And there's some stories. I believe one of them was Al Bielek, who claims he went into the future, and he kind of got stuck there for a little while. Some of these, it's funny because some of these people I was listening to a lot of testimonies before, I was deciding like, all right, what do I think I want to put in the video? And some of them, they're a little scatterbrained a little bit. But I feel like if you went through, it's weird because part of that made me feel like, all right, this actually might not be reliable. But then also thinking about it, I felt like, well, if you went through an experience like this, wouldn't it scatter your brain a touch? I doubt you'd come out exactly the same. So it's interesting to me. And yeah, I think the Montauk chair, there was kind of it was kind of linked up with the Philadelphia experiment, and he was claiming that people had wound up with the Philadelphia experiment. They had wound up on this ship, like kind of embedded in walls and stuff. Like it was like not a clean transfer and things like that. And so this is all these different technologies over the year, right? That talk about similar things, which tell me that it's definitely possible. And between those three, the Looking Glass, the Montauk chair, the Yellow Cube, and actually N4, I guess, and what Bashaga was talking about when he was doing jumps in Edison, New Jersey with his father. I don't know. I don't see why, when you really think about it, why not? Why not? Why wouldn't we be able to traverse these things the same way? I think it's at least possible. Obviously, we've never seen it, right? We haven't seen it by eye. So you can't say 100%. It's
Right.
just a fun theory at this point. But the more and more you dig into it, the more and more I dug into it, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility.
There's too many dots to connect, and there's too many whistleblowers at this point. Like that's what was cool about your video. You played some clips and you got a chance to hear these people talk about it. And at some point you just have to decide for yourself. Either these people are lying or they're not. And
right.
And you have to do your own corroborating research and see, okay, where can I find this somewhere else? And in this case, you can find it in a lot of places. It shows up, and we have little bits and pieces of evidence that pop up. When we put it all together, it paints a picture. And then we have other whistleblowers that talk about time travel programs and stuff like that. And if you really start putting them all together, to me, it actually probably is likely. And if you're going to attempt an operation like 17, you'd almost be foolish to do that unless you had some type of technology, because otherwise you might as well just be some dude in your basement, because you're not going to stand up to this cabal unless you have an upper hand. And let's get into like some of that 17 connections with the Looking Glass.
Yeah. So something that was interesting I found when I was making that video. They had made the post, right? They had said Looking Glass. Now, Looking Glass, there are different things that are named Looking Glass, of course. One of them is also the planes, the Doomsday planes. That's an Operation Looking Glass. So it could have went in a few different directions, but most of us, the consensus was that it was going with this. And one thing I thought was, so I dive into this, right? And a bunch of people were, I'm sure you guys are diving into it in real time too at the same time. And so I dive in. I kind of like consumed my life for like a month, like researching and writing this video, and it was like all I could think about. And it was like I kept finding more and more stuff. I literally went into thinking like, all right, come on, time travel, and then I came out like, oh my god, I think this is true. So when I came out of it, someone shows me a post, and I remember thinking like, dude, I was reading them all in real time. And I don't remember this post, so I don't know if it was a little nod to all of us who were looking into these things, but it was interesting. I could
pull it up if you have it.
Yeah. Let me get this here.
And
okay,
go ahead.
So it was this. So someone shows me this and says time travel is fun, and I remember, so this is from earlier, right? I believe the original post was from either November or December of 2019. We all dove in. I think it was November, because then I wound up finishing my video in early December of 2019. And I remember being like, I don't remember this post at all. And the post, it linked to this status from Enoch. And let's see, where it said, where we go, one we go all. And then I remember like I had just put this video out and I never saw this thing. So I was wondering, to me, I was like, and that was the name of my channel when I was, certain place. And I remember just thinking like, oh, was that a little nod? Like, I don't know. It was weird to me. It gave me the chills. I could have just missed it, but it definitely is something that was mentioned, in the proximity at least, that I just always thought was kind of interesting that they mentioned that. I don't know.
Well, just the whole, time travel is fun. And well, that seemed to happen a lot with the drops. It was like they were watching everybody, like all the
Yes.
anons at the time, and like it would correlate with what people were researching, or what, whatever the case may have been. But there was also another drop. Can you pull that one up? It said, it actually mentioned Looking Glass. Do you have that one or not?
Yes, I'm gonna say I should have that.
Because that one to me,
Okay.
like, come on, why would you mention that unless that's what they're using? Like they had to like, it's almost like they wanted us to research and dig into it.
Right. And so when I was looking back, this is post number 9, when they're saying these different things and these lose the majority vote through the Looking Glass. And so that was like a very early mention of it. And then I don't know, the very original post. See, these are all things but the one from December. I mean, I could find it.
I think I have it. Let me see if
I have a general idea. Yeah, if you have it. I
know
it was, I want to say November 2019. It's like in that general area, somewhere around there.
it's interesting how they brought it up, and to me, that's like I said earlier, there's no way that they could have pulled this off if they didn't have some foresight into the future, right? And
yeah,
the whole Barron Trump thing. So, Aaron, wasn't it Bill Wood? Is that who I'm thinking of? Who talked about the timelines merging in 2012? And what did he say? Something along the lines like they basically couldn't see past that point. They saw like everything just like.
Yeah, I think Andrew Basagios talked about that too. And this was before 2012. They talked about, at 2012, they couldn't see beyond with the technologies. It would just be nothing. And I think with, what was it, the Montauk chair, they would experience just like pure bliss when they were hooked up to it after 2012, when they would like take them through time or something like that.
It must not have traveled to 2020.
Yeah. which is interesting, because obviously we're past that now. We're like, well, what happened in 2020? Why was that the case? So my theory is that the timelines maybe converged at that point, like collapsed, and now, so like it either is going to mean like we're on a solid negative timeline or a solid positive timeline, in my opinion. And so that gives me hope. That's one of the things that's like, okay, well, with all the craziness happening, we are still seeing a mass awakening. We are still seeing a lot of really great things that I don't think we'd be seeing if we were on this dystopian, super negative timeline that the cabal, obviously wants. But Bill Wood talked about there being 2 timelines, and he called them timeline 1 and timeline 2. He says like this is what they would refer to them as in these projects. And so what he said, timeline 1 was like the ascension timeline or the awakening timeline, which I believe we're currently on.
And it's interesting that they call that one 1.
Yeah, and they call that one 1, not the one they want. So it's almost like that's the natural timeline, and they're trying to steer us away from that to the timeline they want, which they call timeline 2, which is where they're, they not only stay in control, but the control just keeps getting more and more. And then, the whole transhumanist agenda, and go down the rabbit hole with that, that's what they want.
Yeah.
And that's what they're constantly still to this day trying to steer us onto that timeline, obviously with all the agendas we see.
And the way Bill would put it, he's like, it was like a chess game, right? And both players had 7 moves. There was 7 moves left to checkmate. The winner knew it and the loser knew it. But they both knew the outcome, and all the loser could do was prolong the game.
Yeah.
And there's going to be moves made, but they're all going to be forced by the winner. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now. Yeah.
Well, he said, no matter what they tried to do, every time they would check the technology to see what okay, what's the future going to be now? He said every time it would end up inevitably the one they didn't want, back to timeline 1. Like they couldn't, no matter what they did, they couldn't get it to change to what they wanted. It always ended up in the mass awakening and the mass ascension.
Yeah, basically they said it was a timeline converged into a reality that couldn't be controlled, and it scared the hell out of them.
So they ended up shutting down the whole thing because, one, they didn't want that knowledge. They really did not want that knowledge getting out, because everything's compartmentalized. So the people that use that technology and that knew that were probably a very small, who knows, number of people, but it was compartmentalized, and they didn't want that information getting out, because they need the people in the compartments under them to think they're fully in control, and this is all, there's nothing you can do about it, this is all happening, kind of thing.
And I think Hillary,
and two, they just made it just pissed them off. It just pissed them off that they kept seeing this, and they're like, oh, F it, we're gonna make it happen no matter what. Screw this thing.
What'd you say, Brad?
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying, I think Hillary, when Hillary saw herself winning the presidency, and the one that they were trying to do, right?
Right.
Yeah, the yellow cube, I believe, is what she saw.
Yeah, that was the yellow cube. What did you find on that, Brad?
Yeah, so I mean, some of that makes me wonder if that's why she was so confident.
Right.
She didn't even have she didn't even have a constellation speech or whatever it is. Yeah. And that's like one of the first times in history someone hasn't come out and given a speech and lost and stuff. They couldn't believe that. I mean, I think they also knew that they had things rigged, but it's pretty wild, man. It's the Bill Wood stuff is pretty wild. There's a couple of them, and he was they kind of attacked him, and they accused him of things and made him go into hiding, and who knows what happened with that. But that's kind of what they do, right? If you're a whistleblower, typically then they come out and they either try to crush you. And what's good about this whole movement with all of us now, it's harder to crush these people. They were a little more unknown, and it was a little easier to make people either disappear or just ruin them without too much backing. And I feel like that's why we have like the strength in numbers now.
Right. Exactly. Because now, like you said, it was more unknown. It was hidden. Like these whistleblowers were coming out in a little tiny corner of the internet. Nobody was seeing it, and they could just sweep them under the rug, and if not, eliminate them in some cases. And we've seen evidence of that throughout time, just with the UFO topic in general. But now it's so mass. It's literally like a mass awakening, and there's so many people coming forward that it's almost suspicious if something happens to them now. So it's actually what they're saying, it's safer to talk and come forward than hold on to your secrets, because they can eliminate you. But if you talk, then it makes, it kind of puts you in the spotlight.
Right. That's a good point. So you're almost safer by saying it that way. It's a cool thing. We're in a cool timeline, I feel, for sure. And I like, no pun intended, but that's also too, it makes you think of the one post where it said timelines change and certain things, some of the things I think they were saying where they were trolling them a lot, kind of being like, hey, you want to do timeline too? Well, guess what? Timelines change and things change. And there was so much interesting stuff. It's funny. I don't even know. Sometimes you don't even know which direction to go, but what did you guys think about? And I know this was in the video. If I can share my screen again one more time, with the Ingersoll Trump a pocket watch that was a limited time, and this was a limited release around the time that John Trump was looking through Tesla's papers and stuff. And this is the exact sort of thing. This is the exact sort of pocket watch that in the Alice in Wonderland that he's carrying.
Right. So and Q has 17, damn it.
Yeah.
Has referenced
That's why there's an edit button.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Has referenced the white rabbit, right?
Rabbit.
Yeah.
Follow the white rabbit.
Right.
What follows the white rabbit.
And that's everywhere in Alice in Wonderland. And then you have this clock. And what's interesting is the pull up those drawings, the images of Looking Glass at Area 51. It's called Alice's Floor, and according to whistleblowers, above the door to that room, entering that room is a white rabbit. And there's even a white rabbit on the drawing there, where we're looking at right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Alice is 4, area S4 of area 51. You know, allegedly these are schematics that people who have claimed to be there drew out. And you know, this comes from long before any of the stuff we're talking about. And it says a stuffed Alice in Wonderland rabbit is permanently mounted above the entrance to the Project Looking Glass room.
Right.
And they claimed that there was an Einstein-Rosen bridge here, and that that's what this was, and that they also had a looking glass device. And basically these were jump rooms. And this is the stargates from the Sumerian cylinder skills. And these are technologies, I mean, with all their Black Ops programs and all the different things that they do, it's not surprising to me at all. Honestly, it would be surprising if they didn't have stuff like this. And with that and the White Rabbit, and again with this, it's the Ingersoll Lockwoods who wrote the Baron Trump books back in the day. And it's just these things, I don't know, there's something to them. And if you go here, there's even a little closer up.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. So that actually, I think David Wilcock pointed out, it resembles what is in the movie Contact.
It does.
Actually.
Yep.
And it's almost like in that movie, they're depicting Looking Glass without telling you it's Looking Glass. You know, we don't, obviously we can just speculate, but right. What do we say? No coincidence.
Very similar to what's in Contact.
It's I think they do soft disclosure all the time in movies. I think, you know, there's a lot of people, whether it's to do soft disclosure or they're just like, hey, you know, look at what I know, kind of having fun with it, and like kind of knowing that a lot of people don't know what it is. And it's just I don't know, I would, you know, if I was making a movie and I kind of knew some things that I was privy to, sure, I would throw it in.
There's actually a government program called a Continuing Public Acclamation Program, where excuse me, by some sort of law, who knows who makes these laws up, but they have to disclose this stuff to us throughout time. Like they have to disclose so much, like every so many years or something, and they never say how they have to do that. So we might be getting direct disclosure from some of these movies without even realizing it. And I've heard even people claim, obviously this is all with a grain of salt, but some of these movies, when they're filming in, like, let's say an underground base or something, it's not actually a movie set. Sometimes they are filming an actual dome that we just assume is a movie set. Like there's that much disclosure sometimes that is directly in front of our face, but we just write it off as a movie, you know?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. That's wild. Imagine that you're watching something, it's they're actual dumbs or actual, even like a craft. You know, I wouldn't put it past them. I know they have these down UFOs. It's almost for certain. Now, Bill Cooper talked about that a while ago, you know, that he had saw tons of things, that they were saying things in the Roswell, and that one of the reasons why there was the thing that happened right after Roswell, one of the reasons why they tried to hide that crash, because they were found they found body parts on the craft. They realized that they were probably most likely doing experiments on people. He claimed that ET was based on an ET like called EB that they had.
Yeah, the Ebes or the Ebens.
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
There's a lot, and I don't know how familiar you are with our channel, but we've gotten, you know, as deep as it goes, you know, as woo as it goes. And but you know, we've covered a lot of that, and it's interesting.
Love it.
It's interesting. Like, well, people claim that Looking Glass also, you can actually teleport with it. I've heard that claimed also. It's also a teleportation device.
Yeah.
Which would make the Ingersoll Lockwood books make more sense. Like if somebody like came to the future or something and saw what happened, came back and wrote about it, like everything's not out of the realm of possibility anymore. It's like we're living in a science fiction movie.
Dude, we really are. And I'm glad you brought that book back up, because actually I have some things here that I really like, some things that I had saved from the book. If you give me a chance to get it up here.
Yeah.
that I think you'll like. First of all, I have the picture of Barron where, dude, it literally looks like actual Barron Trump. Let's see.
Yeah, it's like eerily similar.
Yeah, it's like it's him.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, okay, that looks exactly like Baron.
Like,
Yeah,
look here,
right
like,
there.
dude,
Right.
they're like the same nose, the same,
Yeah,
the same face. Like, that is like stuff like that is the
same
things that
eyes.
really, blow my mind a lot. And then, all right, this is something that I thought was interesting. Chapter 19 and 20. Now, this is obviously, these are obviously I didn't buy a book from the 1800s. These are reprinted. But 19, instead of doing the I, it's a T.
Interesting.
So 19 and 20, if you take out the T, that becomes 20, and the T be kind of like Trump 2020. It's like, right?
Yeah, why would they just randomly put a T?
I mean, I guess that could just be an accident, I don't know, but this is another thing that I thought was weird. This is from, I believe, Marvelous Underground Journey. It says, Anon, right? A group would hold it. This, to me, all right, I'm gonna read this. Tell me if this doesn't draw parallels to kind of the way we all formed together in a weird way. So it says, Anon, a group alt, join hands and begin to exchange thoughts by lightning-like pressures, tappings, and strokes. When others would dash against them, break them apart, and confusion would reign greater than ever. But gradually, I noted that some sort of order seemed to be coming out of the movements of this mad throng. Here and there, groups of 3 and 4 would form and clasp hands. Then these smaller circles would break and form into larger ones. I noted, too, that this ever-increasing circle was formed on the outside of the panic-stricken crowd, and as it grew, shut them in. And so that when a fleeting Sopsody, that's one of the groups he's talking about, hurtled up against this steady line, his terror left him at once, and he took place in it. In a few moments, the madly pushing, jostling throng had disappeared entirely, and the whole city was girt round by these long, steady lines. The great circle had been formed.
Wow.
Like, that gave me chills, man. At first, I was like, popped out, I'm like, oh, Anon. I know you mean like Anana group. I know that's just a way of talking from back then. But just that word was put in there. And then I'm like, that's kind of how we had our few friends at first, we'd be like, yo, look at this. And we'd start doing things. And then we kind of like got bigger groups, and the circles got bigger. And then all of a sudden, we're this big connected community. The Great Awakening, the Great Circle had been formed. I don't know, that specific passage, and there's a bunch of passages in here that I thought were interesting. That specific one kind of gave me the chills.
Yeah, that's incredible. I just sent my dad a text because he was reading a book from like 79. I think it was in the 70s or 80s. It's like some Native American like bear tribe book. Has nothing to do with anything, but they were talking about like future prophecies. This was in the 70s or 80s, and it talks about in the awakening times, a white man would come wearing a red cap and talked about wearing a blue, something like a blue, I forgot. He's going to send me, he's going to be home in 10 minutes. He's going to send it to me. I'm going to read it to you guys, but it's mind blowing. Like it's an accurate description of Trump. And
that's awesome. Amazing.
Yeah. And this is in like some like book that you would never expect it. Like no researcher is even going to find it. You have to be into this specific like Native American tribe or whatever.
Random book.
Wow. He sent it to me a while back. So hopefully he'll send it to me shortly.
The Native Americans, I feel, were very tapped into like the ether and the spirit world.
For sure.
Definitely that whole thing.
That's every indigenous group was, every single one.
Yes.
Right.
I think they purposely severed our ties from that over time. I think there was a concerted effort to do that.
Why do you think they've all been killed off and attacked so heavily?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, we've been pushed or steered away from that life, from that reality, I should say, because they were able to do things that we're told aren't possible, you know, as far as like they were connecting with ETs and like just spiritually, they were like going on journeys and stuff. And now they're just, you know, whatever, being suppressed.
Yeah, I think they were very in tune with just different senses that we had and different abilities that we've had that have been cut off from us. I've said this before in the past, I've always felt like, you know, the European witch trials of, you know, like the 1600s and stuff. And I mean, clearly there were people doing things, you know, it's not like we're talking about cavemen here. They, you know, 1600s, there were people, they were great thinkers of that era. And, you know, I think that as a way, I'll call them all witches and heretics and stuff. And then anyone who still has a connection to some of these spiritual things or things they could do, and, you know, basically burn them at the stake and make people afraid to do that stuff. And then, you know, time goes by 100, 200, 300 years. And now we're just reading all these books from back in the day where people are going to wizard school and stuff. Like it's a normal thing. And like, they really liked their wizards back then. Like, I don't know. Why is it in every single book?
Yeah,
you know, like
exactly. Like it's not like myth and legend isn't myth and legend. Can you make take this screen share off unless you have something?
Oh, my bad. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, we just did an episode on the witch, actually the history of the witch, and we started with the European trials and came all the way current. But they were absolutely afraid of these women. They would do whatever they were doing. They were so scared of them that whenever, before they burned them or publicly executed them, they would make them first shave their head or cut their hair because they were afraid they would be cursed by the touch of their hair because they used hair in their spells and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
But it wasn't like they just thought they were crazy. They actually believed that these women had powers, and they were trying to, if they weren't scared of them, they wouldn't make them cut their hair, and they would make them walk backwards up to the stand so they couldn't give the prosecutor an evil eye. So they would have to cut their hair and walk backwards before they were burned or hung or put in the Iron Maiden, to basically, which is like being buried alive. But it's insane. Like, you don't do that unless you're actually scared of something. So what these women must have been doing something that were freaking people out. And they were probably just tapping into a higher consciousness, which is how Looking Glass is described. It allows you to tap into basically a higher consciousness.
Yes. Yeah. And you know, maybe that higher consciousness allows you to do things. Maybe that world is very not quite as limited as ours is, you know?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
No,
it's not limited at all. I mean, I think our true potential, we could do, like, I don't even think we understand our true potential. Like, we could be using the force and flying around and
Dude, what if that's soft skills? You ever see a documentary, is a very quick little thing from the 80s on this guy called Johnny Chang, and he's doing things on camera. They had heard the legend of this guy where he's literally, he lights a piece of paper on fire, he pushes a chopstick through the table, and there's a couple things, and they said, like, at one point this guy got weird and he says, my master visited me in my sleep last night and he says I shouldn't be showing off with this stuff and I have to retire. And, you know, it was very, like, because I think he did it during a dinner. They were during dinner and he was like having fun, and he pushed a chopstick through a table and one splintered and hit someone. Didn't really hurt them, but, and then apparently he said the next day, he goes, my master reprimanded me and said I shouldn't be doing this first place, and I'm sorry. But this guy's on camera doing some crazy stuff. He was lighting up light bulbs and stuff, and this is like an 80s camera, you know what I mean? Like this, it's not like, so I don't know, it certainly makes you think. And same thing with like those witch trials, they were definitely doing something. You know, we're not talking about Neanderthals here, we're talking about just a couple hundred years ago. And even King James, was it King James VI? You know, whoever the one commissioned King James Bible, he also wrote himself a thing called Demonology, which he's talking about how to deal with these witches and how it's real and the types of spells they do. It's like an actual guide, you know, and he was saying how they were cursing him and stuff. And so there was something real there. And I, like you're saying, I think it is lined up, because I think that's what you're tapping into, this world, and you're tapping into these different things, and it allows you to do that stuff. And there's definitely something to, there's definitely, the proof is in the pudding with with the Trump and these books and Ingersoll Lockwood and Tesla. There's a story here, man. I think they know. I think Tesla tapped into something. I think John Trump, got it. He was an MIT professor, and he actually knew what he was reading. And I think he found stuff, and I think it's a very guarded secret in the Trump family.
There's a show on History Channel called The Tesla Files, which I highly recommend, even for the History Channel.
Really
Aaron, you turned me on to it, and I thought I was going to watch one episode, and I binge watched it all in one night.
Yeah, it was 5 episodes. Luckily.
Yeah, it was 5 episodes, but they're long episodes, even without commercials, and it's unreal. Like you almost don't believe the History Channel is showing that stuff. But when they got to the part about John Trump, they framed him as the bad guy. Like he was the one who broke in and stole the files and was doing it for a nefarious reason. They painted him in the dark. Yeah. And I thought that was very interesting because everything else was pretty accurate. And then as soon as they got to that part, I'm like, I don't think that's how it went down, but obviously it's the History Channel, and I
believe they're owned by Disney now, the History Channel. Some of the older History Channel stuff was pretty based. There is a lot of cool stuff that we've all learned from the History Channel.
There's a lot of amazing stuff in this. There's Ancient Aliens is an amazing show, except it's similar to that, where it's like 95% of it's amazing, but then you got this, they'll like slip in something, or you're like, and it's clearly like still an agenda, there, even though 95% of it's fantastic. So yeah, that lines up with History Channel from what I've seen.
They'll use like verifiable truths as a vehicle to sell you some crap that they want to push, for sure.
Yeah, to me, we talk about controlled opposition figures, like in my opinion, Alex Jones is one of them, Stephen Greer. Yeah. To me, History Channel is a controlled opposition channel or platform or whatever. So it's like they know people are going to wake up to this. So what they want to do is round you into their controlled pin of information, so you never go past that, and then you also get some disinfo. And they want to keep you at this certain level and believing certain things, and hoping you never go past it. Which, unfortunate for them, most people, they'll start with Ancient Aliens, they'll start with Stephen Greer or Alex Jones, but then they move past it, like I did when I had my awakening. Those were all part of it.
Well,
kept going down the rabbit holes, and then I saw, oh look, they put in some disinfo and what they're saying to the agendas became obvious once I got to a certain level,
And that's a good point, Aaron. Everything that we get into is we should be a stepping stone. Even 17, we just can't marry ourselves and sit with this stuff forever and live in the past. It's a stepping stone to further research, to further evolution of consciousness, and it's really just all the awakening never stops. You never just get to a point okay, I'm done.
Yeah,
and if you do that, then you're being duped, because if you think you've reached the end, you haven't.
You're basically making it into a religion at that point. If you're following a certain person or certain information or whatever, and you can't allow yourself to question it or to look at things that go past that or they even contradict it. Not saying don't believe anything first off, but to consider information that's then you're basically saying, nope, I've already found the truth and I'm done. My journey's done. Mm-hmm. Which I'm sorry, but that's never true. That none of us
Dude, there's so much stuff we'll never know it all.
Exactly.
That's what I liked about that operation, because it wasn't just them barking stuff at us. They were literally asking questions and saying, go out, see what you could find. They were literally imploring us to continue. And, that's why I don't even think it needs to come back, to be honest. And, I loved it. I thought it was great, but it was, they told us to do a lot of stuff, and a lot of things that get a tone to it, they actually never even said. They told us to go look at something, and then we'd come back and be like, bro, did you see this?
Yeah.
Look at this. And then we'd all be looking at them they were like, oh, that's conspiracy theory. These are your own CIA documents, guy. What do you mean? But we would have never known to look in a certain spot if they didn't implore us to. So I like that. I feel like that actually was set up for growth and for future digs.
Yeah, that's the thing about 17 is that literally it's telling us to think for yourself and do your own research and don't just believe it things because I'm saying it or anyone else.
And
It's
the codes,
that's part of the main message.
And some of the codes, when you plug them into Google search, would pull up books. They would lead to certain books on disclosure.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay. And they would be all about, I think one of them was even a Dr. Sala book on the secret space program, like even crazy
was a David
stuff.
Wilcock book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of SSP, so, you know, this is something we cover a lot on the channel. And Johann Fritz actually talked about Looking Glass quite a bit. And he had the same, so he went over the same images you did, but he talked about, you know, he has his own memories and his own testimony or whatever. Take it all with a grain of salt because, you know, we just don't know, but it's compelling and there's a lot of dots to connect. But he claimed that they would use Looking Glass to view their mission before they did the mission. So they knew exactly what to bring on the mission. Even if somebody got hurt, they would know what medical supplies they have on hand. And he said that this is how they would go in, like a Black Ops military mission, would go into a building, know exactly what to do, and almost seem like they had superhuman abilities because they knew where everybody was. They knew exactly what it was. But he said what could throw it off, and he made this mistake himself, was if you make a decision that's not what you saw, if you make a decision that it can literally change the outcome of the whole mission, and it's not going to be what you saw. And something happened where he made a decision and it screwed up, and they actually end up having to send in a rescue team. Now, this is just his story. Apparently, this is what he relived, and this is what he lived through in memory, and it's his own memory, right? But if that kind of stuff is actually happening, like, that's fascinating to me. And it would make sense that if you have some Black Ops military that has to go infiltrate a facility and you had access to this technology, why wouldn't you use it to ensure that you're not going to fail? And I feel like that's kind of what they did with Q. It's like the same concept. I mean, 17. It's the same concept. You know,
100%. Yeah, and that's exactly how someone like that would use a program like that, like with a Black Ops. And you know, one thing I felt like, especially looking into all this, and I think it makes sense just common sense wise, anyways. The future seems fluid. The future seems always in motion. I think you could definitely throw off a timeline, or maybe if you're looking into it right and you see everything, you know, it's mapped out, but then you deviate from the plan, you're throwing other variables in there now that are changing what you originally saw. And I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility at all. And that's pretty cool. What was his name again? Because I would love to watch that, actually.
Yeah, we have like 3 episodes with him. Johann Fritz, actually.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you go back in our history, you can watch him. But the guy's like a talking encyclopedia. Like, he just unreal what he knows and remembers and stuff. He's one of the more credible guys I've heard, I would say.
For sure.
What was I going to say? Adding on to that, talking about, so that's what we were talking about, deviating from the plan. Well, you know, we always hear this, trust a plan. I don't know what that even is supposed to mean at this point, because, well, first of all, if the timelines were supposed to merge in 2012, and I don't know what happened then, but right now the whole chatter across the board is we're having a timeline split, like, as if it's just now happening. So did it happen in 2012, or is it just now happening? Was all that off? You know, and if things change in the fog of war, so if we really are in World War III right now, and literally by the minute, by the second, by the hour, whatever, something can happen that changes the course of that plan. And so we don't know what really is going on behind the scenes right now. And maybe trust a plan was great, and maybe something happened and they had to like think on their feet, and some changes had to be made. And we don't know what it looks like, but looking out in the public, looking out in the world right now, it doesn't look that great. But at the same time, people are getting red pilled, they're waking up. Maybe it's all part of the plan. We just never imagined it would get like this.
Yes, I agree. It's funny, as some people, I remember looking into it, and I think it said trust the plan not even that many times, and I think not even past 2018. And to me, it's like, I felt like that was, comforting people. Hey, it's cool. We got a plan. Don't worry about it. But then there's some people, like anything that goes wrong, like, oh, Judd's plan. Like, hey, dude, I think we're well past anything that was planned. I don't know how you could even plan far past that. I think right now it is just like freaking moves and counter moves, and everything's in the air. Honestly, I think this is the fight for the freedom of the world. And I don't think anyone should be resting back on their laurels. I don't think anyone would want us to. And we have a great community, and we're getting into a lot of stuff, and we're exposing a lot of stuff, and we're also having exposing a lot of fun stuff. And like this to me is like really, really fun and hopeful, and to think that some of these things could exist. And I feel like there's a lot of good being done. And even like you're saying, the scary stuff, like with the Biden administration, all this stuff that's going on, it's a little nerve-wracking, man. They're going kind of full dictatorship. It's crazy, because it's funny, they called us Nazis and they, all this crazy stuff for so long.
That's called projecting. They're just projecting what they were doing,
And then when the actual Nazi stuff starts happening, they're like, "Oh, this is fine," or
then we go from Nazis to terrorists.
This is even good. Yeah.
Papers,
white supremacist, terrorist, whatever.
The guy defending himself is a Nazi. And it's just everything's like inverted and backwards, and people, when people can't think for themselves, they have to be programmed what to think. And if they're following the mainstream media or the education system or whatever it may be, they're getting programmed with all that propaganda, and that becomes their beliefs. So it's not that hard to understand why so many people, why we see, the crazy.
I was looking through some research or videos and stuff, and researching, whatever you want to call it, before, just in particular for this episode, just seeing what I could find, any bits and pieces about Looking Glass that we don't already know. And most of it's all been discussed, but I did come across a David Icke quote that I thought was interesting. He said, "We are in the darkest days in 2021, 22, and into 23 before dawn breaks and a whole new reality emerges based on love and freedom." And I don't know where his information comes from, but he says 21, 22, 23, basically like next year is not going to be that great either, and probably not this isn't going away overnight, is what I gather from
before it gets better.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what we know, but it's interesting to see his timeline on that, and that's risky nowadays to put a timeline on anything, because you're
as much as I don't want that, I could see that. I could definitely see that. As much as I don't want that to be the case, I hope.
Yeah, that's like when they were saying, who is it? And I love him, Mike Lindell. I love him. His heart's in the right place. But he was like, "Hey, Trump's going to be back in August." And in my head, I'm like, no, he's not. I think we're in for, I think we're in for a term of this. But like you're saying, for all the bad it is, dude, it's blasting people out of their comas. Like, there are literally people online like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I messed up," and
in a way that nothing else could, right?
Yeah,
like 17 said, people have to be shown. You can't just tell people this stuff. They're gonna call you crazy. Oh, it's a conspiracy. Oh, whatever. When this stuff is literally happening, like in your face, happening to them, you're like, all right, this is happening, and you feel it. You feel all those emotions, you experience it, and nothing else can substitute that. Nothing is nearly as powerful as that. And that is the biggest catalyst to snap people out of their slumbers and to see what's going on, see what's been going on,
Right. And we can't, I lost my train of thought. Go ahead, Brad.
Oh man.
To me, it's like, if the white hats are really in control, it makes, because so many people are like, well, why are they still letting it go on for so long? Why aren't they doing something? To me, it's like, they've already won. I think they've already, I don't think 17 would have happened unless we were already pretty much there. And I think they're letting this happen for multiple reasons, but the biggest one is to wake people up, for the catalyst for the awakening.
Let them see
and experience it for themselves, rather than just rounding up the bad guys and then saying, "Oh, hey, by the way, this is what they've been doing," even though you didn't really consciously experience it.
Well, things don't get real until they get personal.
Exactly.
And that's what it takes to snap somebody out of a coma. I used this analogy before, and I'm going to say it again because it's actually relevant. I was in construction for 15 years, and you would always use the company tools, and they got thrown around and beat up, and nobody gave a shit about them. And it wasn't until they said, all right, we're issuing everybody their own tools, and you have to take care of them. If something happens to them, you're going to pay for it. You've never seen so many guys start babying their tools, but it got real for them. Like, you don't care unless you're actually directly responsible for something or involved in something, you don't care about it is the point. So, and that's exactly what's happening right now. Like, everybody prior to that has just been throwing all the tools around, don't give a shit. But now they're handed the real tools and they understand what has to happen. So they're going to baby that.
Yeah. Personal, like you
right.
said.
It gets personal. And this is what it looks like. And let's face it, you're never going to break free from your comfort zone until you're uncomfortable.
Exactly.
And everybody had to get uncomfortable.
Yes. Now, by the way, I worked in concrete for 17 years, so that's pretty cool. I completely understand that analogy. It's 1,000,000% true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's so true. It's funny though. And it's sad because we just take everything for granted,
Oh yeah. Everything for granted.
Yeah.
Here's something cool to go on like a little side quest here. That's something that I kind of found this out after I did my video, and I always kind of wished it was in there, that to bring it back to the possibility of time travel. If I go into something like that, if I could share my screen.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, please do.
So Frederick Trump, this is Trump's grandfather. He was actually traveling to California for the gold rush and stuff, and he wound up to Seattle, but he went through California around the same exact time. There was this thing called the Sonora Club. This is Sonora, California. And in this club, someone had found an old book, and where they're making schematics for like air machines and time machines, and a lot of them say Trump. And this is supposed to be like a school, and it says these are drawings from like the 1800s.
Wow.
Trump 45.
What?
And these are like schematics of like they were making time travel machines.
Wow.
Arrow Trump 45, 89 Trump. And these are like, they're just old schematics. And this is the Sonora Aero Club. And I just think this is fascinating, man. And this always reminded me here of talking about soft disclosure. I don't know if you guys ever watched Star Wars, but this always reminds me of Yoda's craft at the end of Star Wars 3.
Yeah,
when he lands on Dagobah.
It does look like that.
Yeah. They might have done that on purpose. Like you were saying, it's funny you mentioned the Force before. I feel like that's a little bit of soft disclosure. I've always wondered, if we 100%. Can do stuff like that.
Totally.
And it just lends itself to it. And this is an old thing that they had found with all these things from the Sonora Aero Club. And like I said, they're talking about time machines and air machines, and they say Trump on them. And that's the exact time that Friedrich Trump was actually traveling through. He would have went through Sonora, that general area, to get to Seattle. So I don't know. I always felt like that might be a little piece to the puzzle as well. And,
I've never, that's new to me actually, and that's fascinating.
Yeah, I thought this was pretty cool. This is the guy that wrote it, Charles Deschaux. Okay, between 12 notebook period between 1908 1921, but I think he was referencing stuff, from the 1800s, right? His notebooks recount his time living in a boarding house from 1854 to 1859, when his neighbors included the members of Sonora Aero Club. The club appointed him their scribe, and who was just they were like going into all these stuff and airships and different stuff that are along these lines, kind of along the lines of things we're doing. And the fact that they don't mention Trump or anything, but it's just on these pictures, on these drawings, that on these air machines is Trump. And this one is the best, when it said Trump 45. I was just like, I remember getting chills seeing that.
It's just so random that why
it's
Trump
so it's
like,
so random that it means that nothing is random.
it means it's not random. Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
like that,
Otherwise,
just like,
it's like,
what is
why?
that? If it's all true, what does that tell us about reality? Like, in reality, what does that tell?
Is it as steady as we think? Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
are we in some sort of, is it more fluid? You know what I wonder too is, how did Trump know to go to Manhattan? I don't know. I don't know where you guys are from. Are you from the East Coast or West Coast? Or you're from
Midwest.
California, right?
St. Louis,
Midwest.
Missouri.
Yes,
Midwest.
yeah.
So New York City, right? New York City is like the island of Manhattan, and then there's Queens and Brooklyn and Long Island out here. A lot of people in the 80s, they were staying away from Manhattan. Manhattan right now, people think of it as like a tourist destination. You go to Times Square and it's like going to like Disneyland stuff. Dude, like in the 80s, it was literally, you went to Times Square, it was all peep shows, hookers, and you got stabbed and robbed, basically. And Manhattan was like it was kind of like they had done to Manhattan what they had done to like Detroit and all these other cities. And Rudy Giuliani just saved it in the 90s. That's the only difference why Manhattan is the way it is now, as opposed to all these other cities who unfortunately have stayed, kind of like beaten down by Democratic policies. But Trump is one of the reasons. Trump in the 80s, he's one of the literal reasons who saved Manhattan. And how did he know? He went, everyone told him to stay away from Manhattan. And he said, "Oh, dude, do not build there." And his father, was doing buildings in Queens, and he said, "No, Manhattan's a great place. I want to return it to grandeur." And he started doing things, and he was making these grandiose buildings and putting like a lot of work into them, where it was kind of like people were like, "Dude, you're like throwing your money away." And he didn't. He's one of the reasons, and people started following his lead and rebuilding Manhattan essentially. But how did he know? That's how he made a fortune, because he was able to buy them pretty cheap. Some of these things somewhat cheap because no one wanted to touch it. It was like freaking, it was like go get robbed land. But how did he know? I feel like they've had this technology, man. I feel like it's been in their family.
Well,
And
if
you can
it
see little
goes back
windows to the
to
past. You can make a lot of, or little windows to the past or future. You can make a lot of money.
if it goes back to Sumerian times, I mean, who knows what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
There's a guy who. Well, first of all, I want to say something, just because I know we're gonna get the comment. We always get comments from Trump haters like, "Why do you guys keep putting Trump on a pedestal? Trump is not your savior." Blah blah. We know that.
We've got some
Nobody's
BDS people that follow us, unfortunately.
Well, we do, and it's true, and it's a very valid point. Nobody should be. The whole savior complex thing has got to go, and it's up to us. That's like what we're realizing right now. And even if Trump came back, it's not like he's going to save the world, right? But you know what it's going to do? It's going to be a morale boost for the entire world. And can you imagine just how the consciousness will shift into a positive direction if we have somebody that you somewhat feel safe with in power? That doesn't mean he's going to do anything in particular to save the world, but what he stands for at this particular time is more than what he actually is going to be doing. And
yes. 100%. You know what? All right, I'll say this. And I think you guys like this. First of all, Jesus Christ is my savior. That's and I'm sure Trump would agree with that and all that stuff. The reason why I talk about Trump a lot is because, dude, he started all this. But back in like 2014, if you were online, if you said anything that wasn't like completely liberal, everything they're pushing, you were ganged up on. And then he started running 2015, and he started giving them a freaking taste of their own medicine and telling them what the frig was up and letting us know, like, oh man, you could say that to these people. And then we start speaking up, and then we realize, oh God, there's a lot of us,
Right.
And then it started this whole community. And this dude, for as much as I know there's people who don't like him, and that's fine, that people are entitled to their own opinion. But this dude has done more to me. It's not that he's a savior to me, but I really respect what he did. He knocked the cabal back worse than, in my opinion, anyone's done in 100 years. This guy was the biggest thorn in their side, whether people think whatever reason they think he was that he did it. I just think that he was the sober guy at parties looking around being like, oh my God, these people are sick,
Right.
And he did it. This guy went in, he infiltrated Washington. Through 17, they popped us out as much information as they could while they were in there, and he gave them a piece of their mind and gave us a lot of confidence and built this whole community. And So he's not my savior. Like I said, Jesus Christ is my savior and always will be. And Trump will never have anything, or no one will ever have anything on him. Greatest man that ever lived, the greatest, more than the man, obviously. But, but I really do respect what Trump did. And to me, he's probably our greatest warrior, I feel. And so that's why I bring up Trump. And, that's why I like what he did. You can't deny what he did, dude. He pissed in all their faces for 4 straight years, and it was glorious. And I would love to have it come back, but it doesn't need to. Look what we're doing. We are all doing this right now, and that's what he always wanted. So, exactly. Whether it comes back or not, I feel really good about where we are and where the world is going.
Well, and if he was the last president, and we know Biden is like illegitimate on all levels. Like it's as far, everything down to the man himself, if it's even him at this point, like what if somehow
I don't think any of the Bidens we're seeing is actually
right. I wonder, like, what if somehow, like, I'm not saying Trump is like still in power. I don't know what's going on, but like the last official legal president, right?
Right.
So like Biden doesn't even count. I don't care what anybody says. Fight me. Like Biden is not the president. Like, and going back to
the deep state that's in power, essentially.
Right. He's a puppet, obviously, and most politicians are. And there's arguments that Trump is too, and maybe he is a puppet, but for somebody in the light, you never know.
If Trump was a puppet, listen, anything's possible. If he was a puppet, then they really messed up by putting him in there.
Right.
Yeah, talk about
he definitely wasn't a puppet of the deep state. That's for sure.
That's what I mean.
They didn't spend 4 years attacking one of their own. They don't. That's not.
Right.
So
I'm sorry. That's
not that viciously.
Sorry, guys. I don't care what you want to say. That's
going back to Looking Glass or even coronavirus. So I watched a video this morning.
Oh yes.
I was just trying to catch up on the stuff, and they were talking about how, I don't know if it was Looking Glass, it might have been Yellow Cube or whatever, but they described that if you were to go back, a lot of it depended on your belief system. And they specifically use the analogy that if you were an atheist and you went back to the crucifixion of Christ, you wouldn't see anything. Really? And it all goes based off your belief, and it talks about how we create our own reality. So, but it said if you were a Christian or whatever, you go back and you would see the crucifixion. And apparently one of these guys did just that. He went back to the crucifixion of Christ and took a photograph. And this photograph, this guy was showing on the video, and it's like, it's either real or it's not, but it's very interesting. And it shows Jesus with a few other people, not crucified, but it's a photograph of basically the modern depiction of what we imagine that he looks like. And I don't know the validity of that at all. Obviously, I don't know how that works. If it could be bullshit, but it was interesting. But the photograph was taken using chronovisor tech. I do know that, because once the Vatican got a hold of it, they wanted to go back and see if these events actually happened. And one of the places they went was the crucifixion of Christ, and they apparently got a photograph, and it was in this video. I was looking at it. I was like, who knows?
That's pretty wild. You're right. I do remember reading about the photograph, and if you're able to tap into these frequencies, right? Like they were doing it a lot with frequencies like Gemelli and then the coronavirus. There's a lot of things with that. There's even, we've heard right now they're starting to do things with they feel you can do healing things with different frequencies and different stuff. And what if this is the tap into the world? You talk about self-disclosure. There's been movies with, like I think the movie Stargate, right? It's all with sound, something with sound and frequencies. And, again, that's a movie that could just be made up of, some of these things I'll pay attention to them because you never know. It's like they do pepper things out. And like you're saying, where it's kind of like a law where they almost have to show us, but it just seems like frequencies are the key to a lot of things. And if that's what they were able to do, and could you imagine like actually watching a crucifixion? That's kind of like when you watch the Passion of Christ, man. They're like, it's like really jarring, but this is something that happened was really crazy, and I think it is important to see it. But imagine actually watching the actual crucifixion. That would be insane. And I don't know. I remember seeing this. I think I had that picture saved at one point. I don't have it right now though.
Yeah,
You have
I'll
it? I would
put
love
it. I know
to
where
see
it's at. So whenever we upload this, I'll put it on the screen
is,
so people
okay.
can see it.
There you go.
Yeah, no, it's worth
Awesome.
it's worth looking at. Yeah, because people are like, "Where's the picture? I want to see the picture." I already know the comments.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Right. No, it's interesting. I don't know, man. It's to me, it's just the Stargate movie you were talking about. I think
Yeah.
that is probably real. Like, I think that is just showing us disclosure. Actually,
In the
Jordan said-
show SG-1, which is a continuation of the movie,
Right.
they're going to all these different planets and meeting all these different ETs and stuff. Yeah, I guarantee, and it's happening out of that Cheyenne Mountain base.
well, there's here,
Air
and here's the
Force.
thing. Here's the thing also, Aaron, there's tons of articles right now coming out about this technology being disclosed, but it all gets swept under the rug. If you're looking for them, you're going to see them, but no mainstream sources covering them. They're not making headlines, but these articles are being released and they're admitting like, hey, time travel is probably possible. Parallel timelines, all other dimensions, all of this stuff, portal technology. There's real articles by credible people coming out and disclosing this stuff, and it just gets swept under the rug. Not many people are paying attention to it. And I could take one of those articles and put it on social media, and it's just like crickets, either shadow banned or what. But it's like no one is even cares.
Kind of like into 2016 when like every single mainstream media outlet was talking about the what was it, Luis Elizondo, when he came out with his stuff saying, wasn't that what that was?
No,
and they
not
all were like, hey, the government's been studying UFOs this whole time.
Yeah. I think
Well,
you're
and
talking
now
about
they admitted it.
But it was like
things were real
but then
now.
at that time it was like the event that the UFO community for so long was like basically saying they were waiting for and thought would be this big deal, and it was like giant yawn.
Are you talking about the 2017 New York
Or
Times?
was it 17?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was,
2017.
It was
sorry.
December 19th, 2017. It was a
I got
New
the
York
year
Times
wrong.
article. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like,
But it was like hardly anyone was like, oh yeah, whatever. Either like, oh, we already knew that, or
It's so crazy.
okay, who cares? Like,
well, that's just how
you're talking about the 3 videos, right? He released 3 videos that he said they had that now have been verified, that the Pentagon's come out and said are real finally, I think last summer, right?
TikTok and whatever else. Yeah,
exactly. Like they're claiming it's real, but there's obviously limited hangout there.
But we know we're
not going to get disclosure from the same people who have been lying to us, because there's
right.
There's blood on their hands. There's treason. People have literally been killed over this topic before. But
to me, it's funny that they did that. The deep state or whatever, thinking, oh, this is going to be such a big thing, and everyone's going to, and then everyone's just like yawn.
Right.
It's like,
right, yeah.
We're like, okay, are you gonna show us like real stuff or like expand on this?
What it comes down to is they're not going to blackmail themselves.
But exactly, and that's why they'll never go deeper than that, because they would have to.
That's why that report was such a nothing burger. It was a dud, because what they're trying to do is, like I said, they have blood on their hands. They don't want any part of it. So what they're trying to do is pretend like the military is totally unaware of all these black budget programs.
Yeah.
And they're gonna point when stuff does get disclosed. They have their hands free. They're free from any involvement, and they get to point their fingers at Lockheed Skunk Works and all these other companies and say, oh, it was their program, not the military.
Yeah.
So they're they're not held accountable for lying to us.
Exactly.
Yeah,
right.
That makes a lot of sense, and kind of covering their bases, because they've been peppering things out. They have been peppering things out. They also said that they've been working on that. They've had these reverse engineered things, and didn't they just say like last year also that they are in possession of UFOs, that they have downed crafts that are not from this earth?
Yeah, exactly.
And then there was the Israeli I forget, some minister, whatever.
Galactic Federation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Israeli thing that talked about the Galactic Federation and how we were in contact with ETs forever. I mean, and that just kind of got swept under the rug too, you know?
Yeah. And that was like the Canadian Minister of Defense who had come out years ago. He
Oh,
said the same thing. Yeah. He said, oh, you know, we're aware of.
He said that for years.
Yeah. He's been saying it forever.
Years.
And, you know, if you start putting all these things together, it's pretty much like, yeah, it's there. You know, there's no way around. It's funny. Like I have all these, you know, my first love was always looking into like UFOs and aliens and stuff like that. And, you know, all through like the 90s and 2007. That's why I really like the Ancient Aliens. The Ancient Aliens shows you things that are just undeniable. And like you said, every now and then, you know, they'll shoehorn stuff in. And I think a little less in the beginning. You know, there were things on the History Channel, I think when it started, that they actually were able to get away with, and until there was like a little more commandeered.
But when John Podesta shows up on it, then you're like,
yeah,
what?
Like, give me a break.
Yeah.
It's like you're giving this guy stage. Okay, like you know who you work for, you know.
That's the worst, dude.
No, there's a lot of good stuff there. Yeah, I agree.
But there's some good stuff. And used to tell people, like, I'm sure you guys did the same thing. You would tell your friends, you'd be like, oh, UFOs, haha. And you'd be like, dude, there's like 1 million UFO videos. If even one of them's got to be real, you know? And then they laugh. But now they're starting to like pepper out like, oh, okay, yeah, we actually do have a UFO. Oh, those release videos, there actually are true. We did say those are. Yeah, well, there's a federation that we talked to. And now, where are all those people? Well, it's like all crickets. Like, where are all the people who told me that I was a conspiracy theorist, you know, 20 years ago?
Well, we're not, they're taking it serious now. They're actually taking it serious on mainstream media. They know it's coming. They know it's inevitable. They know it's coming. They're trying to control it. They're actually trying to get ahead of the game by giving us a narrative. So, and obviously we have to, it's like limited hangout. We're not getting the full truth. We're going to get a little bit. It might be the best that we're going to get, unfortunately. Some people want like true disclosure. Who knows if that's going to happen, but we're not getting laughed at anymore. They're taking it serious. For all those years, they were calling us conspiracy theorists and laughing at us. And now here they are giving their new script like, oh, wait, you really want us to cover this? Like,
and now they're like, oh yeah, by the way, yeah, they're real. Yeah. Well, they're trying to say, they're also simultaneously saying they're real, but we don't really know what they are. And we know the technology. Well, it's funny because they're literally saying this is technology that we don't have, and it's not possible, which implies it's not us, or the technology came from not us.
Right.
But they're also saying, oh, there's no proof that it's ET or that it's not from here. That is the proof. Like if that's not the proof, like what is? Okay, so then then what are you saying? That you've developed this insanely advanced technology in secret for decades and decades and have been hiding it, and then you're admitting to that, and you're keeping
it's all convoluted. There's no way
either way. It's like
there's no way around it at all for them. It's just like
but that doesn't make any sense.
It's going to be messy. None of it's going to add up. Nothing's going to make sense. I mean, these people are lying through their teeth. They have gag orders.
You're saying, oh, it's from another country that's developed this insanely advanced technology, right. Which if you're admitting that, if they admit that, then okay, so now we can't defend against this technology, is what you're saying, and they could just attack us, and and then that's the whole. They're trying to make it into a threat. That's the whole ATIP.
Yeah, always want to make us feel helpless, right? Anything they could spin to make us. Well, I mean, they did like in World War II, right? They were talking about the Foo Fighters, and that they saw these things. That's where that all comes from. And you know what? I would love to see the real news. The real news. It's all the fake news. But I would like to see one of these things that tout themselves as an actual news organization explain Puma Punku. I mean, you say, you're saying you did construction, right?
Yeah.
Those are such precise cuts. I mean, you need like a diamond blade for that, and like actual like exact drill holes and things like this in these blocks. You just can't do that. I mean, I don't know, or maybe I'm being naive.
Even the diamond blade wouldn't do it. Like
the Great Pyramid, the pyramids.
First of all, I say we know because I truly believe that there's some sort of sound technology involved with levitating these stones. And there's actually evidence of that nowadays. They're selling items on Amazon where it's a hovering, whatever it is due to sound. Like it's a pad that creates a frequency, and like your phone or something will just hover there. You just put it there. There's even a UFO out there, like the little UFO toy. It just hovers above this plate.
Yeah.
Like the technology is even coming out in our in home items. But you mean to tell me if it's on our desk, they haven't tried to replicate that on a large scale? They've already done it. They're just having fun with it now and, you know, turning it into toys.
Yeah.
100%.
But
But yeah, like you said, we've been finding now for decades and decades all over the planet, all these ruins, all these things that were built that we can't do today. So what is that and the mainstream narrative is that they were done by these primitive, oh, we're the pinnacle of technology and advancement, and they were just primitive back then. But they built these things that we can't do today that are like, so, like you said, so precise that we were clearly like a technology used.
You can't even put a piece of paper in between the bricks of the pyramids.
There's a
piece of paper.
Yeah, there's in Peru, there's like these giant stones that look like they were melted, that the seams are like
it's all melted in place. Yeah.
And it's all melted. Like it's like, okay, please explain to me how they did that. And I don't even know what their BS explanation is for that, but they, you know, there's no possible way they can explain that other than they clearly had some advanced technology that we don't have today, which really means we probably do have it. It's just being withheld from humanity and these secret projects. And you know, it's obvious, like at some point at least we had that, and there was a much more advanced civilization. There's all this evidence that a massive catastrophe happened. There's tons of evidence of that, and
100%.
They got wiped out. And you know, there's rabbit holes there, but like clearly there was a much more advanced civilization that existed thousands of years ago.
Well, that's why some people think that like the second coming already happened, and we're now living in the post-apocalyptic era. They say like I've heard that's part of the Tartaria theory. Like there was all that advanced civilization, whatever. Like, it was the second coming already happened, and now we're just living out the post, whatever, apocalyptic times or whatever. This is the end of it, and then we're right at the beginning, at the dawn of the new age, and like so we're never gonna see that second coming. Actually, that's a theory of Tartaria.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. Whatever, you know, I do know we're at the beginning of a golden age, or whatever you want to, the new earth, whatever term you want to call it. I do believe we're at the beginning of that, but we're at the transition from the old age of enslavement and control.
Right.
And that's why everything's so crazy right now, because we're like the old system's trying to hang on for dear life and kicking and screaming, and then all the mind controlled people from that system are still going around like doing their stuff. And then you've got the awakening happening, and the new energies coming in, and the new coming in, and it's like chaos. It's like you got this chaos happening, and it looks really scary. Obviously, like that's just what's gonna happen from that, you know.
Right.
No way around it.
Exactly. It's inevitable.
But it's happening. Yeah, the good news is it's happening, and it's inevitable, in my opinion. It's
an evolution of consciousness that cannot be stopped.
Exactly.
Okay, so actually my dad just sent me the picture of that book we were talking about earlier. Actually, the book is called The Bear Tribe's Self-Reliance Book, and I'll put pictures of this on screen, which is not what you would never look to this book for research about, you know, whatever, Trump. And it says, it is known that our true white brother, when he comes, will be all powerful, and he will wear a red cap. Like, what is that even like?
That's wild, dude.
Yeah. He will be large in population and belong to no religion but his very own. He will bring with him the sacred stone tablets. Great will be his coming. None will be able to stand against him. All power in this world will be placed in his hand, and he will come swiftly and in one day get control of this whole continent. Hopi have been warned never to take up arms.
That's awesome. You know, and everyone who kind of tried to say all the fake news and all the things that tried to go at him, literally he laid waste to them. You know, he's so quick, and they're so dumb, some of them.
He exposed them for what they are. Like everyone, he's like, he made it obvious that the news is fake and it's controlled, and there's just agendas, and that he was a threat to that. So that's why they were attacking him and attacking everything he was doing, saying. And
Just
it's
the
one of
whole
the most eye-opening things
those
ever.
books that aren't, mind controlled and under these dogmatic, political beliefs and stuff. It became obvious. It's like, oh wow, look how fake the news is, and look how much they're just propaganda machines and not actual news. Like it's so obvious.
100%, dude. 100%.
Right.
Yeah,
And just the whole fact
now
that
we're the news now.
We are the news.
Yeah, exactly. We are the news. Just the fact that they say a white man with a red cap.
With a red cap. Yeah. It's like,
and I mean, it's hilarious. And the date of this book, I forgot. It's not on here, but I know it's from like the 70s or 80s. It's an old book. So
that's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild, dude. Yeah, you can. That's just like certain things like that, man. I feel like people, whether they realize it or not, or don't, they tap into, the ether or whatever you would call it. And I think some people, they get a little more prophetic things, whether they realize it or not. They don't always know that that's what's happening, but I think that is what happens, which would suggest that time isn't linear. If you can, these people, like Edward Casey's of the world and different stuff like that, that would suggest that time at some spot in some dimension can be happening all at once, which actually lends itself to the looking glass, which lends itself to the possibility of traversing time in reverse or in forward and not just in a regular linear path, which, would open up everything. And I think it's pretty interesting. And that's why I love this topic. I think this topic is absolutely fascinating to me.
Well, that's what Bill Wood said. He said it's a coming to the reality that time isn't linear. I remember him saying that. So
yeah,
it's true. Yeah.
Exactly.
Brad, what's up, man? What else? Where can people find you? What do you have going? What do you have coming up next? You just spoke at did you speak at that conference in Vegas?
Yes. I just spoke at that conference in Vegas. There's going to be another one in February. I believe it towards the end of February. That should be cool. I'm going to be speaking at that one as well. It's you can find my work too at logicalbrad.tv. I like to dip into a lot of different things. Obviously we could talk ancient aliens and time travel forever if you wanted, and then or also I cover a lot more the politics, and I cover a lot of stuff. But I've been doing a lot of digs, like I just released I just redid one of my documentaries, Population Control, about Edward Bernays, and kind of like how they've put in the place of how they kind of control everything. And it's pretty systematic, and how they went into that, dive into that. And then another one called that was called Propaganda. And then one that I just released in September, Population Control, which is about something that we're not allowed to talk about. And here. And but you can find those at logicalbrad.tv. And I just love it, dude. I just love searching for truth and having stimulating conversations, and just the thought of even talking about the possibility of using a looking glass and look at future probabilities and going back into the past and stuff like that is just so fascinating to me. And that's just one avenue of a bunch. And I know you guys on your channel, the same thing, you go down a million different avenues. It's cool, man. It's like these are some of the fun parts of the Great Awakening. It doesn't always have to be so stressful and crazy, but that's why I like what you guys do. And I don't do it quite as much, but when I do, I definitely enjoy it for sure.
Right. And one thing you said that stood out is the stimulating conversations. That right now, that's the type of stuff that feeds us. And every time you have a conversation like that, it's a reminder of what we're doing here. Like that's why I love doing the show, because how many times do we research something, look into something, and then it's mind blowing, it's fascinating, and you just go on about your life and you almost forget about it. But when you're doing this every week and you get to talk about it all the time with new people and just go down rabbit holes and talk to whistleblowers, whatever the case may be, it keeps you on your feet. And it's a constant reminder of why we're here and what our purpose is right now. And I love it. I absolutely love it. And thanks for coming on and doing this with us.
Oh, of course, dude. It's been a pleasure, man. And it's fun, and I love your guys' channel, and I appreciate it. I would love to come back, and eventually, maybe one day you guys could come on my show.
Yeah. Oh, dude, all the above.
Yeah.
All of the above. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we will link your guys. So if this wasn't enough for you, we're going to link his looking glass video below. It's really well put together, and it's great. It's like watching a mini documentary.
Really good.
It's really great. I'm not just saying that. So this was a lot of fun, man. What else? Anything else, guys? Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for the donations. Thanks for all the support. We love you guys. Can't do this without you. Grab a ticket to our conference, secretspaceconference.info. All the information is on the website. Come hang out with us, get some CBD, get some OMNIA patches, buy some merch, have some fun. We will see you next time. Good night, Brad. And thanks for joining us.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. Thank you guys.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Bye.